Settling is not an option for me. Everything I desire is already mine. What if you can have it all? Because every day is for the girls.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of For the Girls. I'm your host, Victoria Alario. And today I am so excited to be back because I am back from vacation. And I know I had episodes going out. I know, okay, we skipped last Monday, so we skipped the 19th, but I did have episodes going out throughout the rest of my trip while I was away. And I know that they were still out, but I feel like there's just such a difference when I'm on autopilot mode versus when I'm recording each week. Like, it just feels different. Like, I don't really enjoy recording in advance and then having everything just like roll out like that. I prefer to record things each week because I feel like every week I have new things on my mind and new things I want to talk about. So when I record in advance and an episode goes out that week, it's like, maybe that week that's not even what I resonate with right now. So I just like feel really good to like be back on track and be more like real time with you guys. And yeah, I was just in Italy for 18 days, so nearly 3 weeks, and it was amazing. I think what is the funniest thing is that my comments and DMs and texts and just like everything was from people being like, "You're getting engaged. You're getting engaged. I know you're getting engaged. Oh my God, are you getting engaged?" And I knew I was not getting engaged on this trip. That's why I'm saying it's the funniest thing. Like, I knew I was not going to. I did not have any sort of gut feeling or intuition that I was going to. Just the way that the trip was and like what we had planned, and you know, we did meet up with my boyfriend's family and all that. Like, I just knew that we weren't, I don't know. I knew we were not going to get engaged. Not that he would have given me a hint, but I feel like based on conversations and things that we have spoken about, I just knew. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about elevating your relationships mindset today. That's really like what the topic of conversation is, because like I said, everyone and their mother thought that I was getting engaged simply because we went away. And I feel like now that I think about it, I do feel like every time we go away, I get those kind of messages. But in the last year, I mean, we've gone away a bunch of times. We went to Disney. Well, I should say Orlando, but you know, Disney, Universal, that whole thing. That I think was like my favorite. I freaking love that trip so much. But we did that. We went to Turks and Caicos. We went to Aruba. Now we did Italy. So it's like all these trips that we've done in the past year, I feel like everyone just automatically assumes that like if you're getting on a plane with your boyfriend, that you're getting engaged. And yeah, like I went into this like knowing that I was not. So I did not go there thinking it was going to happen, despite the hundreds of comments insinuating otherwise. And I feel like, yeah, that's really what made me think about this sort of topic is like, why does everybody think that the second something special happens in your relationship, that just automatically means that you're getting engaged? Like, are people not doing special things in their relationship regularly? I have a lot to say on that, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first, I do want to kind of recap Italy a little bit before we get into everything. And I'll just share, you know, a little bit more details of the trip. If anybody needs like further details and information, if you know, want to know more, if you're planning a trip for Italy, whatever, feel free to DM me and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. But I'm just going to keep this a little bit more like surface level to go through everything as quickly as we can before I get into the topic. But we started off the trip in Milan. So we did book a multi-city trip because we flew into Milan, but then we flew out from Rome. So if you guys are traveling around Italy, that is definitely something that I would consider doing when it comes to booking your flights. And he did book our flights first class, and it was amazing. That was my first time ever flying like real first class. Like, one time ever in my life, I booked myself a first class seat, and I was going to Park City, Utah. I was going on a ski trip, and I didn't know at that time that there was like different levels of like first class, not levels of first class, but I didn't know that first class varies based on the type of plane. Like, this was years ago, and I just didn't even know that that was a thing. I didn't know that you could like look at and look up what type of plane that you're flying on, and that would tell you what your first class seats look like. So I full blown booked a first class seat. It was not business class, it wasn't premium, it was first class. But when I got on the plane, it was just like a regular old plane. So the seats were just regular seats. They did not recline all the way back, not to mention that I was in the last row of first class, so there was like a wall behind me, so my seat barely reclined at all. I was like, okay, I could have just sat in economy and had a full recline. But my seat like really didn't go back at all. They were simply just wider seats than the average, economy seat. So that was basically what my first class experience was like in the past. And I'm like, I'm never doing that again. That was not worth the money. It was like $1,000 for just a few more inches on my seat. But yeah, he booked it, and this was the first time I had like that like flat lay or lay flat, whatever you call it, the beds, and it was just unreal. You like sleep the whole time, you get good food, the TVs are great, like everything is just amazing. So if you can possibly do it one time at least in your life, do it. Trust me, it was worth it. So we flew into Milan, and to me, Milan is just like, this was my first time there, but it felt like just a smaller Rome. I did not find Milan to be that special. Like, there's the Duomo area, which reminded me also of like Florence, because there's the Duomo in Florence. And it's just like that sort of vibe. It's just like a city like all of the other cities. And so we were doing that. And that's where we stayed near. We stayed right near the Duomo. So like you're basically in the city center. Then we did do a like bus day, like those like tour bus things where it takes you around the whole city. And if you do it in Rome, it's really long because Rome is really big. But when we did it in Milan, it was like 1 hour around the entire city. So we really saw that Milan is actually very small. So we didn't like dislike it, but there was just not much like about it. We were in the city center, we did the shopping, we did the bus tour, we had rooftop dinner. So we did a rooftop dinner right by the Duomo, and then we did rooftop drinks somewhere else right by the Duomo. I think the place where we got drinks was called The View, and so those were nice because you had a really nice view at the rooftop. And that was it. Yeah, we just really like walked around and shopped and whatever all day. And then from there, we went to Lake Como. And now the thing about Lake Como is that the lake is huge, and there are a lot of places on the lake that you could stay. So there's like Bellagio, there's Tre Mezzo, there's all different little like towns on the lake. But we stayed in Como. So Como is the town like all the way at the very, very bottom, like before you even really like make your way around the lake. And it was very quiet there, as opposed to staying somewhere like Bellagio, which was mobbed. So we did a private boat in Lake Como, and it took us to Bellagio for an hour. So like it was like a 3 or 4 hour boat, and then we spent 1 hour in Bellagio walking around. And oh my god, we were like, thank god we did not stay here. It was mobbed with like thousands of people. It was just crazy. But Lake Como to me was like my favorite. I love a very relaxing place. Like I just love a relaxing time, and where we stayed in Como is like that. It was very, very, very quiet, as opposed to being in a city like something like Milan or whatever. And so that is definitely more my speed. It's a lot more luxurious, Como. So I would say Como is a more expensive place. We went to that so if you saw the picture where I had like that dress on that looks like a landscape, we went to that villa. It's Villa d'Este. I think it's like Deste. I don't know how to say it. Deste, whatever it's called. And it's like the most iconic, I think, and like famous place, like property, biggest property in like all of Lake Como. And it is the most exclusive and hardest to be at. And I don't say that in a way of like, oh, we went there. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is that we didn't even know that. And so like we always planned to go there. I literally bought that dress to go to that place and wanted to take pictures at that place. So when we were at our hotel and we told the girl at the front desk that we were going to go there later on, she was like, oh, you have reservations? So we were like, no. She's like, okay, well, you have to make reservations or you can't go. You either have to be staying there as a hotel guest, or you have to have dinner reservations, like proof of reservations, in order to even get on the property. because they don't let you on the property to just like walk around. And so we were like, holy shit. And luckily they had a 7 o'clock reservation for that night, and we were so freaking happy. But yeah, I did have a lot of people messaging me to that, my stories and pictures from there, being like, what's this place, I want to go. And I'm just like, make sure everybody knows that you have a reservation or something, because they legit have people at the gate. And when we pulled up in our Uber, they're like, what's your name and what's your room number or what's your reservation time? Like, they don't even let you through the front gate. So just make note of that. But yeah, then like the private boat and everything, Lake Como was just such a vibe. And then we went to Rome. Rome is just great. I mean, Rome to me is like being in New York City. But cleaner and prettier and nicer, but it feels comfortable. It feels like home. We were still like touristy there. We did the bus. We did that kind of stuff because whatever, that's what you do. You go and see the Vatican, you go and see the Colosseum, whatever. And that's all whatever. My boyfriend enjoys that stuff more than me. He's a little bit more of the tourist, and I'm a little bit more of like the let's do something indoors because it's so damn hot out. So we did the cooking class. That was called Chef for a Day, and that was great. Like, there's all different cooking classes. You don't have to do that one. That we chose that one, to be honest, because it was the shortest one. It was 2 hours. A lot of cooking classes are 3 or 4 hours and you make more things, but this was just one pasta and just one dessert. A lot of other ones do like 3 different types of pastas. You make the sauce, like whatever the case is. And so we wanted a shorter one to just experience it but not spend the whole day in there. And so that to me was like my favorite part of Rome. Plus my other favorite part had to be the scooters. So the scooters are in Milan too, I want to say, but Milan is just like a smaller city, so we didn't do as much walking. But in Rome, because things are like far away and whatever, we took the scooters out, and it just felt so like my Lizzie McGuire movie like dream thing, like, being on the scooter, going around, headed to date night in like my skirt, like my dress, and like cute outfits on the freaking scooter. Like, it was so much fun, and to me it was so romantic. I feel like it's actually funny. I have like a mini little story time. Back in the day when I was single and I lived in Miami, I went out with a guy from Italy once, a very, very, very Italian guy, straight off the boat. I think he had just moved to the States. He had just moved to Miami. And Miami has those kind of scooters too. But like in the States, like, I don't know, that's not really like a means of transportation. It's like, get a car, or if you don't have a car, take an Uber. People don't scooter around to dates, especially not in Miami where things are very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, things are like high maintenance, things are like materialistic, and like that stuff matters, and that stuff very much mattered to me. And like, not only was I taking Ubers, but I was taking like Uber Premier, like a fancy Uber. I didn't even want to get like, this was a different time, okay? I don't care about that shit now, but I'm like, I'm not getting in like a little janky car. Like, I want to get in a nice car to my date. Like, that was just how I felt. And so I met this guy. I took an Uber there, and I didn't know how he got there. I didn't ask questions, but like, whatever, we went out, and we were just grabbing a glass of wine. Like, we went to a wine bar to get a bottle of wine, and so he said to the waiter, "What's your best bottle of wine?" And so the guy points to the bottle, and he's like, "Okay, what's your second best bottle of wine?" And he points to another one, and then he's like, "All right, what's the next one after that?" So then he pointed to another one, and that was like the third best, and he got that. And I was so like icked out and turned off because right after the guy took the order and walked away, he looked at me and was like, of course, when I ask what's the best bottle and second best bottle, he shows me the most expensive and the second most expensive. And I legit said back to him, I was like, but you asked for the best. Like, the best is going to be the most expensive one. Like, what did you expect? And don't complain about the price if you're asking, what's the best one you got? Like, I don't know. I just thought that was like so weird. That turned me off so bad. And from then I was just like already turned off. And the guy said to us, like, do you want appetizers? Which granted, I didn't want, because I knew we were going out for just drinks. So I did eat before, but he didn't ask me before he said no to the waiter. The waiter was like, are you just doing wine or do you want little picking things and apps? Like, it wasn't full-blown food, okay? It's a wine bar, so it's very small picking things, like legit nuts and whatever. And so he was like, no, we're just gonna have the wine. He didn't like look at me and say like, do you want anything with the wine? And I was just like, oh God, I can't deal with this guy. I feel like I need to talk about this on TikTok. This would do well as a video on TikTok. But in any case, the point of where the story came from was by the end of the date, obviously at this point, I'm turned off because of all that cheap kind of stuff. And then more, like there was more things, like the date was just weird. I don't know. The vibe was just not right. Anyway, at the end, he's like, do you want to ride back? Like, where do you live from here? Do you want to ride back? And I'm like, oh, you drove? He's like, no, I have my scooter. I have a scooter, whatever. I'm like, what? Like, you want me to get on your scooter with you to take me home? Like, and now that I think of it, I'm like, okay, maybe if this was in Italy, I would have done it. But in Miami, no. That is certainly not the vibe. And I was just like, oh my God, this guy's a lost cause when it comes to me. So I said no. I got myself an Uber and I headed back and we just legit never spoke again. Actually, that's not true because we spoke again one more time very briefly and then we never spoke again. He had texted me after that telling me that some like DJ or rapper, like somebody big was going to be at a club, which I never even went to a club in Miami, but he texted me like, oh, so-and-so is going to be performing at this club. And so I wrote back and was like, okay, let's go. And he wrote back to me and was like, do you have a table? ? And then that was it. Then we really never spoke again. Then I never answered. I'm like, you're telling me that you like about this person. I guess you want to go. And then you're asking me if I have a table? Like, what? So yeah, that was, again, no. But yeah, that whole scooter thing just made me think of him very briefly. But yeah, so the scooter thing for us, at least, me with my man who I love and is not cheap and weird like that, was very romantic. And I very much enjoyed scootering around Rome with him. And the food was just great. Everything was just so good. I think we did a rooftop in Rome as well, so had a beautiful view of like the Vatican and the city and whatever, so that was really nice. And then from Rome we did Positano, and Positano is just, it's just lovely. Like Positano is just Positano, so it's also a different vibe because it's a beach town. So we went from like city vibe to lake vibe, back to city vibe, then to the beach vibe. And so that was, you know, like really nice. And we were spending time at the beach and just kind of like relaxing a little bit. And then we did like half a day in Capri because there's the ferry from Positano to Capri. And, you know, we did that for a few hours, had lunch there, walked around. That was really nice. And yeah, then after Positano and after that whole like, you know, 8 or 9 days or so, we spent the rest of the time, it was like 10 days in his town where his family is from, and yeah, spent time with his whole family, and that was really nice. I definitely need to work on my Italian because they certainly don't speak English. And for me, like, I obviously don't speak Italian. I don't fully understand Italian, but there are a lot of words that I know. So when I'm like listening to them speak, I'll just find that one keyword that stands out to me that I understand, and then I base the context around that. So they'll say like a full sentence, but I hear that one word in there and I'm like, nope, no, like I know exactly what you're saying, no, and like whatever the case was. And yeah, so that was kind of like my means of communicating, and of course my man was a very good translator. But yeah, that was everything. It was very nice. It was a long trip, like I said, almost 3 weeks. It was 18 days, and now I am jet lagged and exhausted and I'm back to regular life, and I think I need that. I need like a vacation after the vacation because it was a lot. It was a long trip and it was hot. It was extremely hot. So now that that's over, I'm like, oh, it's time for fall. I'm home and ready for fall or Christmas and all that. But now that we have recapped the whole trip, let's get into the topic of raising your standards around relationships. Because here's the thing, like I said, everybody assumes you're getting engaged just because you went away, as if like now you can't go away and do nice things with your partner unless it means like you're getting married. But then the other thing is too, like I see these girls on TikTok saying things like this where these girls are all assuming already that they're getting engaged simply because their man wore a nice outfit or their man is nice. Like they do that trend that's like, is he proposing or is he just treating me extra nice today? I'm like, are we actually assuming we're getting engaged because our boyfriend is being affectionate? Because he's being nice? And that's like random? I saw one that was like, you know, he never like makes the plans and he made this whole reservation and he has like a nice outfit on and he cares about what I'm wearing. And I'm like, okay, now granted, they are getting it, they're spot on, you know, their assumptions are right. But that's the problem, is that I'm like, wait, so now these people are in relationships where your man being nice to you, or your man putting on a pair of fucking slacks, or your man making dinner reservations is enough for you to know right then and there that something is off and you're getting engaged. Like that shouldn't feel right? Like that shouldn't feel acceptable. You shouldn't feel like I know I'm getting engaged simply because this man who does the absolute bare minimum finally did a little bit more than the bare minimum. Like that is just so beyond me. And this is what I've always been talking about when it comes to talking about like high standards and what I always wanted in a partner. And people think too like surface level and they think so one-dimensionally. People don't understand that when I was saying all this time like I have high standards, it's not just about like little surface level things. It's about everything. It's about the entire relationship. It's about having somebody who goes the extra mile for you on a regular basis and vice versa. I don't just like have high standards because that's what I wanted in a guy. That was what I was capable of giving. And I knew that I had it in me to be that sort of partner. So I couldn't settle for someone who just does, like I said, the bare minimum when I have so much to give. I needed someone who also has a lot to give me in more ways than one, not just financially and not just in those sort of ways and paying for things and gifts, but I mean emotionally and when it comes to the effort that is made on a daily basis. And also, speaking of engagements and whatnot, I have a side note question. What happened to the surprise element of being engaged? Because I keep seeing Brilliant Earth sponsored engagement proposals. Like, I have questions. I have thoughts. How is this possible? So now here's my thing, okay? So if people are getting sponsored proposals, that means one of two things. Either A, the boyfriend or now fiance is reaching out to the brand or handling this with the brand and deciding for the girl that she's going to do this sponsorship on her platform. Like, to me, that doesn't really make sense because doesn't she have to consent to this sponsorship? And the biggest ick of all, when I think about the possibility that the man is the one like handling this and reaching out to the brand and whatever, is like, so does that mean that the man is just asking for a free ring? Because like it's a sponsorship. So he's not paying for the ring and then also getting paid by the brand. So he's getting the ring for free, which is like, okay. So now this girl is like showing off her 5-6 carat ring from Brilliant Earth, but it was free. So I don't really get that. And then option B is that you're the one approving and organizing the entire thing yourself. Because again, you have to consent to a brand deal before just being required to posting it. Because what if you don't want that? You know, like if my man said to me, oh, this ring that I gave you, you have to post about it because it's a brand deal. I'd be like, no, I don't want to, you know? So then it's like, okay, so now you're not surprised, right? Because you are organizing and approving and planning your proposal. Like, that, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. How are you then surprised when this is something that you know you're being paid to show up for? It's like being paid to go to your surprise party. You know when and where it is, you know what color to wear, but then when everyone jumps out and says surprise, you're shocked? Like, I don't know. I am just so mind blown by the entire concept of paid proposals. There were a few people lately that I saw doing that, so that was on my mind when I thought of this topic. But going back to just having standards and whatnot, I feel like let's say it this way, I feel like men get praised and get away with the bare minimum when, like, and women do not have that luxury at all. I feel like women only get praise and rewarded when they do the most and when they have like the most success and when they see like a huge thing, like when they do a huge thing. Like, women just don't get praised for showing up because we always show up. Like, women show up even on their period when it's very hard to show up when you're on your period. Like, we just live life and don't really get praised for anything unless it is something extravagant. Whereas I feel like I come across things and hear things where men are being praised for watching their own kids. Like, there's been times where, okay, say that someone's a mom and they're a content creator, they post on social media and they go out and they're like out with the girls or they're traveling or whatever the case is. The comments are always like, and where's your kid? Like, and you're just out traveling, or, oh, you're just out with your friends and you have a kid at home. And the mom like will make like a follow-up video being like, I don't know how to tell you this, but the kid has a dad. Like, the kid has a dad. The dad is not babysitting my kid. The dad is with his own child. Like, why is this something major? And then, like, yeah, I do see videos, or I do hear people being like, so and so is watching the kids, like, or babysitting or whatever, and making it like a father is watching or babysitting his own children that he created with the woman. And the woman doesn't get told that she's babysitting or watching the kids when she's with them. It's just motherhood. It's just being with your kid. That's just what you do. You have your kid with you. But when the mom is not around for 5 seconds and the dad is, we give him this praise of like, oh, he's so good with the kids. Oh, he's such a good dad. Like, okay, granted, sure, you might be a good dad, but that's what makes you a good dad? Watching your kid? Like, isn't that the bare minimum? Isn't taking care of your kid the pretty much only requirement when it comes to having a kid? Taking care of them? Like, I just don't really understand where this praise comes from when it comes to men doing the absolute bare minimum. Now, granted, let me make sure that it is clear, because I am not saying my man taking me on this trip is the bare minimum. Not at all. This was a luxury trip. This was the maximum, okay? So no one is out here like praising him and I'm saying like, oh, this is nothing. Like, that is not the case at all. He took me on the most luxury, extravagant, amazing vacation that like I can't even explain how grateful I am. Like, trust me, that's not the comparison that I'm making at all. The reason why I'm making that comparison is just because every single time that we have gone away or that like we look nice, people just think like I'm getting engaged. And like, of course, I would like to be getting engaged, and I hope that I am at some point in the near future. But when you have a relationship where special things occur often and travel or going places and spending time together and making memories is the norm, you just don't assume it. You just don't assume every time that something nice happens or every time you get dressed up or go somewhere and do something fancy that you're getting engaged. And I feel like people get so comfortable in relationships or so comfortable even in their situationships that they expect nothing. That them just spending time with someone at all is like, okay, he made time for me. Like, okay, he answered my text. Oh my God, he called me. Like, is that what's special to you? Is that what makes you feel special? Like, is that what you are really willing to settle for? You have to be willing to ask yourself these hard questions, because I would never want someone to feel so comfortable with me that, and I don't mean so comfortable in a good way, I mean it in like a negative way. I would never want someone to feel so comfortable with me that it's like, oh, she won't care. She's so low maintenance. Like, she doesn't require anything. She doesn't require much. Like, oh, I love being with her because I don't have to do anything. Like, I've heard guys talk about that. Like, I've heard guys saying this on TikTok, mainly because it comes up on my For You page because it's being stitched by a girl who will like completely roast them and read them to filth. But it's like, the video will start off of like the guy being like, you know, where are the girls these days that are low maintenance and don't require a million things? And it's like, no, people are waking up now. Girls are seeing now, like, we have settled for so long. We have settled for breadcrumbs. We have settled for nothing. We have felt perfectly fine getting nothing out of our relationships for far too long, and we're not doing it anymore. It's not acceptable anymore for a guy to just say like YWD at 1 a.m. on a Friday, and then I'm gonna answer and say, oh, nothing, I'm still up, come over. Like, that is not how men are going to be like getting to sleep with women these days. Like, you're gonna have to make a woman feel actually special. You're gonna have to start making effort in order to get that sort of access and privilege from a woman. And at the end of the day, it all goes back to what you're willing to accept. So if that's the case where guys are able to just have that sort of access to you, guys are able to just be intimate with you and get whatever they want from you by providing nothing, then you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, what is it that's like making me give into these things? What is it that I actually want? How does this make me feel? You know, sometimes we hear girls say things like, oh, I date like a guy. I don't get attached. I don't care about sex. And whatever, like, if that's your thing and you genuinely feel good, it genuinely makes you feel happy to just not, you know, have the romance and whatever, and you just want to quote unquote date like a guy, go for it. But for the girls who accept these certain things, knowing deep down it doesn't make them feel good, knowing their gut, their intuition is like going off and saying like, no, like, this is not right for you. If that's where you're at, then you have to get real and you have to get honest with yourself, and you have to be willing to cut a lot of guys off, because the guys that are giving you attention right now are probably giving you nothing more than attention. And so since that's all you're getting and that's all you're accepting from guys, just simply some attention, then that's why you think every single time that you see one thing out of the norm, like him being nice or him getting dressed up or him making plans, you're like, this is that thing. This is the special thing. I'm getting engaged or whatever, like whatever the case is. You want to be in a relationship where you're not impressed by the bare minimum. You're not impressed by a guy just simply making effort. Just like what I said about, you know, the men who are praised for watching their kids. Like, you're not impressed by a man taking care of his own kids. For me, I do think that the trip and the trips in general that my boyfriend has taken me on, because he always like takes care of these things, that is amazing and it's super special, and I absolutely love that he does those things for me. I am so grateful and appreciative that he does those things for me. But because they are the norm and we go away basically like 2 or 3 times a year in our relationship, I'm not going to just like jump up out of my seat with like, you know, alarms going off in my head thinking like, is this going to be the day? Is that going to be the day? Because no, the type of relationship that I waited for and that I accepted is one where romance is the norm, is one where effort is the norm, and special moments and special things are the norm. And there may come a time where they're not necessarily, because I know once you have kids, your life changes. And, you know, when they're in school and just financially because of, you know, bills and taking care of kids and all that, I know it's not cheap. I know that's going to change. I don't live in La La Land. This is not like some Delulu Central. I know that things change when you go from like the dating stage to then when shit gets real and you have the kids and all that stuff. I'm well aware of that. So again, I'm also not thinking like that this stuff is always going to be the case for the rest of our lives. But the point is that this is how we set the tone. Because there's things that he provides and there's things that I provide. Because guess what? My man has high standards too. It is not just me. He has high standards for what he wanted in a woman as well. And so this is how we set the tone with what he brings to the table and with what I bring to the table. And that's going to evolve as our lives evolve. And so, yes, things are going to change, you know, as time goes on and as just our environment changes, but we're always going to provide in the ways that we provide, however that looks like at that time. So even if 1 year it's not trips and things from him, it's going to be him providing in a different way, and vice versa. The same for me, because I would never want him to feel like I don't think that I need to do things for him, or I don't need to, you know, provide in my way as well. Like, no matter what changes happen, we always make that effort to make the other person feel special. But you have to make note of accepting like what you accept from the beginning. I accepted a relationship where he made me feel special from the beginning. I made him feel special from the beginning. I didn't have to teach him that. I didn't have to tell him that. I didn't have to ask for that. I didn't have to beg for that. And neither did he. Now, you can communicate it in your relationship, but it's important to make sure that they really understand and that they really can comprehend what you're saying. Because if they just hear you, but they don't comprehend you, they're going to think, oh, okay, let me just like do this nice thing for them this one time. Maybe I'll just like get you flowers next week or whatever the case is. And then that would probably be it, because they think I did my thing. You know, I did my big one. But the reality is you want someone who makes the conscious effort and it just comes to them naturally to do these things for you always, you know, on a regular basis without you having to ask. No one wants to have to ask for flowers, nor does anyone want to be asked to get them flowers. No girl wants to say to her man, like, you got me flowers that once or twice, but you never did it again. Why do you never get me flowers anymore? And sound like whiny and complaining. You don't want to have to do that. And men don't want to be controlled either and told what to do. So the easier thing is to be with someone who just naturally gets that and organically, you know, genuinely on their own makes the effort to get you flowers, whatever the case is. So if you're in a relationship where you're so unsatisfied with the effort that is, you know, being put out and put forth, yes, you can communicate it, but you need to observe the changes long term, not just in the next week or so. You need to observe the changes for the next, 6 months, maybe 9 months. I don't even know if I would give it a year if I'm not like seeing those changes. And then you move accordingly. Then you figure out what actually needs to be done from here. Is it that this person just clearly can't give you what you want long term and you need to just reroute and meet somebody else and give somebody else a chance? Maybe that's the case. But you also don't want to ask for these things in that like naggy way of like, I see these girls on social media getting XYZ. Why don't you do that for me? I want that. Like that's not necessarily going to get you what you want either. It has to come from the heart, and it has to come from a real open discussion and conversation, kind of like a check-in almost of where you are or are not satisfied in your relationship and what you feel like is missing, what you feel like your love language is, and what would make you feel loved, and how you show love, and like all that kind of stuff, where you could say like, I feel like I'm showing you so much love in XYZ, but I don't feel like I'm receiving love in XYZ. And forget that. If you're not even like in the relationship and you're just like seeing someone, I would not even bother with that, because if this is just like those really early talking stages, what you're doing right now is collecting data. So you are collecting evidence and building their case on who they are as a person and how they pursue you, or if they even pursue you at all. So if you don't even have any skin in that game, if you're like not even committed to this person yet, I would not be sitting there telling them, you don't do this, you don't do that. I would just keep it moving. And I would end it with that person and say, listen, I just don't feel like we're compatible enough. There are certain things that I'm looking for that I don't really feel like I am gaining or getting from, this dynamic, whatever the case is, and leave it at that. Like, you have nothing to lose by maintaining your standards. You can't possibly lose the guy who wasn't yours anyway. You can't possibly lose what's not for you. And if this guy is clearly showing that he's not for you and can't give you what you want or what you're looking for, then why are we even wasting time? Why are we even entertaining this? Because you're bored? Because you're lonely? Because you just want someone to give you attention? The person that he introduces you to, like the version of himself that he puts forward first, that sets the tone. Think about it. They always want to impress you the most for a good first impression. So if he does the bare minimum from the beginning, it's not, he's just not going to start leveling up as time goes on. So what he shows you when he's really trying to impress you and put his best foot forward, that's the thing that sets the tone for the rest of the relationship. Now, it doesn't always mean that just because they were good in the beginning that they stick to it. That's a whole other conversation for another day, because there's also the guys who introduce you to a vibe that they cannot maintain. And that was one of my first videos ever on TikTok that went viral and kicked off my dating videos, because there are guys who started off one way and then you start to notice the shift and you're what just happened here? Things are not the way that they used to be. And there's all different reasons that happens. But either way, you got to make sure that you call that out, and you got to make sure that you communicate that, because it's okay, you were clearly capable of this in the first place. So what changed? Is it that you met somebody else? Do you like somebody else? Did your feelings change for me? Are you not satisfied? Whatever the case is. So that's a whole other topic, but again, it needs to be communicated, it needs to be called out, and it needs to be nipped in the bud and cleared, because if they are just going to keep doing this now and not giving you what they once did, you should not be sitting around and waiting around for that. But in any case, for the most part, the vibe that they introduce you to sets the tone. And so if they are doing the absolute least from the beginning, you really can't expect let me just stick around for a couple weeks, a couple months, because then he's gonna get his shit together. That's probably not going to be the case. Whatever the case may be, it all starts with you knowing what you want, knowing what makes you feel special, knowing what you're willing to accept and settle for, and what you're not willing to accept and not willing to settle for, and standing on that. You need to stand on business. There is just no other way around it. You cannot be caving every time they say things are going to change. You need to pay attention to actions, not words. Words can only mean so much, but integrity means so much more. If he's a man of his word, if his actions match his words, if he does what he says he's going to do, pay attention to those things, and make sure you pay attention to them long term, not just something he did once or twice, the way that he makes you feel all the time. And I think when you can start to elevate your mindset around relationships and realizing that, then you're not going to be oh, he was nice to me today, something is up. He, planned a dinner today, something special must be happening. Those things are great. And of course, if he makes you feel special, then that's special. But you should also just know that you have that in your relationship. You should also just be getting flowers just because. Your man should also be just taking you on a date just because. You should also be making fun memories and having experiences to look forward to together just because. And now we have a Dear Victoria submission that I want to get into in regards to relationships and standards and all that as well, in a different way, but this one is intense, so let's get into it. Dear Victoria, I've been a big fan and follower for a while now, and I need some advice. I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years, and we have always been in a good place. But recently, we have been bumping heads on intimacy, and his mom always being around being the cause. Last night, he told me that I am not a priority, above his mom, and he doesn't know if I ever will be, that she is the main woman in his life and that he is going to take care of her for the rest of her life, which I'm okay with, as a man should take care of his mother, but he keeps putting our future on hold for her. He is a provider and protector and hits every other one of my standards up until this. I love him very much, but I don't know what to do. I need advice from you, as you are someone that has helped me mentally over the years, and I need the guidance. If you could answer, it would truly be a big help for me. Okay, now, like I said, this is intense, and I think a lot of women have, like, I've seen this a lot before, and a lot of women have struggled with this. I want to start by saying this. I think, for me, the first issue, like, every single person has their own ideal timeline and everyone does things different. This is simply my opinion. I think the first issue is being boyfriend and girlfriend for 3 years. Like, I just don't believe in relationships staying at that level for that long. I think when you are in a relationship, you know, a year and a half, maximum 2 years, like, like, you should be moving on to the next stage and progressing your relationship, because when you stay boyfriend and girlfriend for a long time, 2 years and beyond that, I find, in my opinion, that is when they get so comfortable, and then things take even longer. I feel like if it doesn't happen before the 2-year mark, then it ends up happening just so much, like, later, and it gets prolonged because of the fact that they're already so comfortable with you. And I think everything you're saying here is, unfortunately, from my analysis, a prime example of that comfort. And, like, you have to also realize this. Him saying you're not a priority above his mom makes sense when you are just a girlfriend. Because you have to think of it like this. Boyfriends and girlfriends come and go. So you're not always going to put a boyfriend or a girlfriend above those people, like your parents or whatever the case is, because they're not your husband. They're not your wife. They're your boyfriend. They're your girlfriend. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that your mom should come before your girlfriend, period. But I do think sometimes there's that exception when they are just a girlfriend. Now, I don't know if it's that you're living together or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't have enough context around your relationship. To me, it's like, you're together for 3 years, so you should be the priority before his mom. But you are just his girlfriend. So I think if you're not requiring that commitment, if you're not requiring the ring, if you're not requiring being his wife, then that's why he's comfortable with saying that. This is, again, just my opinion based on the small amount of context. I think in life, your husband and wife, that's who and what comes first, period. I think your wife and your husband, or your husband, come before your kids. I think that's who comes first in life, because your husband or your wife is the only person in this lifetime that you will ever choose. You choose your wife. You choose your husband. You do not choose your mom. You do not choose your dad. You do not choose your kids. You choose to have kids, but you don't choose the child that you have. So there is one person and one person only that you ever personally choose to be your family. And that is your spouse. That is your husband or your wife. And I think requiring that sort of commitment and raising your standards makes him have to elevate to that level and saying, okay, like, that's it. We took the next step. Like, we're engaged, you know, we're gonna be husband and wife now. Like, we are each other's family now. We are each other's chosen family, and we are now each other's number one priority. If he thinks that his mom will come before you even after you're married, girl, run. Like, it's just not possible. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna assume his mom is what, 25 years older than you, 30 years older than you, 35 years older than you, however old she is, okay? She's gonna die before you. Like, this is just the reality, right? She's going to pass away before you. So now, does he just expect for, like, the rest of her life, you know, that she's up and kicking, you're gonna be put on the back burner, and you're going to get knocked down time and time and time again because mommy's going to come first and he's always just going to do what his mom wants and he's going to put off your future and he's not going to give you what you want and you're going to be always his second choice. And then when the time comes that his like mom, you know, passes away, knock on wood, God forbid, whatever, in the future, then it's like, all right, girl, I got you. Like, you're first now. Does he think that like you're going to be like okay with that? Like that's just the life that you're going to accept for yourself? Because I would absolutely not be okay with that, and I don't think that you should be either. Your partner is the person that you choose to do life with, and that because of that choice, they should be your number one priority. Everybody else is secondary. If he spends the whole however many years of the rest of this treating you like you're secondary, you are going to resent him so bad, you're not even going to want to ever be there. You're not even going to ever want to be his first choice. You're just going to be like, you know what, like, I can't deal with this. I've been knocked down too many times before. I have never felt like the priority. Like, I can't deal with this. I can't handle this. Like, no woman wants to feel like that, and no man wants to feel like that either. You also mentioned, you know, like, he's this provider and protector, and he does everything except for this. But you have to realize something. Like, he's not fully and unconditionally a provider and protector if the conditions are up to his mom. You're saying his mom is always in the way. You're saying he told you you will never be the priority above his mom. You're saying he's putting off your future plans because of his mom. So he is not a true, undeniable, unconditional provider and protector because it comes with limits and it comes with conditions. The conditions being his mom. If his mom says no, it's a no. If his mom is in the way, he doesn't have your back. He chooses her. And so then your things get pushed off and you become secondary, like I just said, because his mom is in the way. He literally told you, my mom comes first. So now think about it. Like, what if, you know, there's always like the hypothetical situation. If you can only save one, what if you can only save one, me or your mom? You're going to save your mom and then just leave me to die? That's not a protector. That's not a provider. You need to know that like your husband would lay his life down for you. You need to know that you would be the first person that your husband would save. You need to know that you would be the first person that your husband would take care of. If you don't have that confidence and security that your husband, that you would come first to your husband, then that is not a person who is husband material. That is not a person who is ready for marriage. The whole point of that sort of commitment is that you are committing your life to that person. You are committing to providing for and protecting that person. No one else comes before that. How I mentioned, your partner is the only person you choose in this life. You don't choose your mom. You don't choose your kids. You have to also think of it on the reverse. Your kids love you because you are their parent. Your parents love you because you are their kid. Your siblings love you because you are their siblings. But your wife loves you because she chose to be with you. Your husband loves you because he chose to be with you. Everybody else, like, there is no choice. You're always going to love your kid, even if your kid did something awful. I mean, I see these things on the news where these kids go and do terrible, terrible, terrible things, and their parents are heartbroken. And they're on the news talking about it and saying, I can't believe he would do something like this or she would do something like this. Like, we still love him. You know, we'll always love him, but we're heartbroken that he would do this. Like, even parents of kids who have done awful things that, you know, put themselves in jail or whatever, they still love their kid because it's their kid. So, you know, your mom loves you because she's your mom. Your kids love you because they're your kids. But let's not ignore the fact that your wife is the only one who is loving you because she's choosing to love you. So now if you're going to put that as secondary, then I'm sorry, like I said, you're just not husband material. The only way to be true marriage material, true husband material, is to unconditionally provide and protect. And I'm not just saying financially provide, I'm saying like take care of. But he's literally telling you, like, I'm always going to take care of my mom before you. So that's basically like, you know, you know, have you seen those TikToks where they're like, who comes first? Your wife, your mom, or your kid? And, you know, the list, I think, in my opinion, I guess it is an opinion, but to me, the only right answer is wife first, kid second, mom third. That is the only right answer. Your mom raised you to now go on and live your life and have, you know, a future with somebody. Your mom, I would hopes for you that you build a family of your own. So the second that you choose to have a partner and you choose to, you know, build a family and have a future with this person, you're choosing to start a new family. Your parents and your siblings are not your immediate family anymore. Your immediate family is now your wife and your kids. And then your parents and your siblings, those are like more toward being your extended family because you created a family of your own. And now you are, you know, the head of a new family. And so you have to realize like that gets pushed to second priority and then third priority. And so when I see those videos where there's been a couple of guys who will say like mom, kid, wife, or like whatever the case is, the comments are always like, oh no, I feel bad for whatever girl ends up with that guy. Like that is terrible. Like, oh my God, someone needs to teach them. Like, I don't know. I mean, there are some toxic moms out there, but I'm pretty sure any mom who has a healthy relationship with their son would want their son to say, wife comes first, kids comes second, and then mom comes third. And if anyone is questioning why I say kids or wife first, it all goes back to what I was saying. This is your teammate that you chose to have. Your partner has to be your teammate. Your partner has to be the person who comes first, no matter what. If your kid is going in on your partner, you cannot sit there and laugh or think it's funny. You have to punish your kid and say, you're not going to talk to your mom like that, or you're not going to talk to your dad like that. Like, your partner has to be the person whose back you'll have first and foremost forever, because that is the person you are going to have by your side for the rest of your life. Your parents are going to pass away before you. Your kids are going to grow up and want nothing to do with you. Your kids are going to grow up and have a family of their own. So the partner that you choose is the person that you choose to grow old with and to live your life with. So your kids can't come first, because by the time your kids are freaking 18, they're going to have a life of their own and they're going to be doing their own thing. So we got to stop putting the conditions around the partner. Like, oh, well, as long as my mom is alive, you know, as long as my mom is here and kicking, she comes first. Oh, well, once I have kids, you know, my kids come first. No, one person and one person only should be coming first, and that is your wife. Everybody else comes after. Now, I know that was a long tangent, but I just feel like that's something that always bothered me. Like, I always have seen those videos. I always have felt that way. Like, you cannot convince me that someone's mom should come before their partner. There's just no way. So now, as far as what to do with that, I don't know, because I don't have enough context. So I don't know if you live together. I don't know if she lives with you guys. Like, you know, you saying his mom always being around is the cause. Does that mean that she lives with you? Does that mean that she always comes over? If it's a matter of the fact that she just always shows up, then you need to implement boundaries. And you need to say, you can't keep showing up to my house. You know, like, you can't keep coming here and spending hours here on a weekly basis. But again, I don't want to like give you advice that may not pertain to you because I don't have enough context. So her being around too often, what is the situation? If it's that she lives with you, is it possible for you guys to no longer live with her? Or is she like alone, can't take care of herself, and she has to live with you? What is that dynamic? Or is it, like I said, she just constantly popping up, she's always trying to be around you guys and make plans? Then you need to set boundaries, and you need to say to him, like, I cannot be seeing your mom on a daily or weekly basis. Like, we gotta, you know, minimize this to like every other week, because it's ruining our relationship. Boundaries have to be set in place. You need to also explain to him, I mean, I just like explained this whole thing about coming first and whatnot. You need to also explain to him that it's not acceptable for you to not come first for him. Now, you could use everything that I just said here as like your example of what to say, but like, if he cannot understand that, if he can't see where you're coming from, then I'm sorry. I don't know how this is a relationship that you stay in, because I just could never live my life with someone who didn't put me first, like didn't make me feel like I was their top priority. Like, It's just, it can't be. If this is something that you feel like you can deal with, and you can deal with this like intense mom and son relationship that pushes your plans back and always puts your future on hold and whatever, then I guess go for it. But if you're sick and tired of that, then again, what I said from the beginning, maybe it has something to do with the fact that like you're together for 3 years and you're just comfortable now with no ring, with no, you know, label or commitment of like fiance or husband or wife, whatever the case might be. So I don't have enough context to give you full advice on what to do, but I hope that everything that I shared, like the mindset stuff and just like my opinion on it, gives you more clarity on like how you should feel, or at least how I would feel. Maybe you could feel however you want. I can't tell you how you should feel, but I'm pretty sure that you will relate. So yeah, that is my whole tangent on that. But it all goes back to standards, and it all goes back to what you want in a relationship and what you require from a partner. If you do not require commitment, if you do not require being prioritized, if you don't require these things, then yeah, the bare minimum is going to be enough. But if you turn around and say like, I cannot move forward in this relationship under these circumstances, XYZ, all of this needs to change, then, you know, like that's the conversation that you need to have, and you need to make that clear, and that needs to change long term, not just for the time being. You need to actually feel that difference. So I hope that this helps. I hope that this gives you clarity. I hope that this feels like some girl chat and just some honest big sister advice. And yeah, I hope it was helpful for whoever needed to hear it. But that is all we have for today. So thank you, girls, so much for listening. Until next time, girls.